Welcome to Raja Yoga Part 2. Raja Yoga is the path of willpower. Today all over the world there has been tremendous interest on yoga. In the United States, 80% of the health clubs have yoga as part of their health program, and they expect that in next 2 years almost all the health clubs will have the yoga sessions. Somebody estimated it is more than 1.5 million people who are practicing yoga in the United States. Similarly, in Japan, in UK, in European countries, Australia, Singapore, everywhere yoga has started spreading like wildfire. But invariably, yoga is practiced as yoga postures, as an alternative to exercises, almost as health panacea. For them, yoga means asanas. Asanas are like exercises, and they evolve different types of ways of doing postures, and they have the power yoga, they have the heated yoga, they have got the fast yoga, and so on and so forth. But what does the term yoga mean? We have seen that yoga is the science of total living. Yujyate anena iti yogaha. Yoga is the process of joining the small little personality we are to that all pervasive personality, the cosmic expansive reality. Patanjali systematized the methodologies and processes 3000 years back in this country, India, and gave us those beautiful aphorisms called Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And he says in the second verse, in the second formulae, in the second sutra, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha. Yoga is to gain mastery over the mind. How do we do that? If the mind is too powerful and distracted, and you have no concentration, you cannot directly handle the mind. If the enemy is very powerful, when you go to the wrestling yard, you have to use other tricks. In the same way, if the mind is too haphazard, you cannot directly control the mind, therefore you have indirect way to control. I remember one of the persons from Hindustan Aeronautics Limited had come to our camp, and he said, "Sir, I have lost all my power of concentration. Can yoga do something for me?" I asked, "What do you mean by losing concentration?" He says, "Sir, I come home after my strenuous day's work. I am very stressed up. I just want to sit and relax and read some simple book, not very serious things, something like a newspaper or a small magazine and so on. And I start reading, first sentence, second sentence, and by the time mind jumps, oh, I should have done this, I forgot. My wife has told to bring this one, I forgot. My children have to do this, that, and so many things. I wander around the world for almost 20 minutes past. Then I come, I have forgotten what I have read. I sit in front of the book and I cannot read even half a page in 2 hours. Can yoga do something?" When the mind has gone to this level of distraction, chanchala, how can you directly control the mind? Therefore, Patanjali says, don't worry, we have got indirect ways to control, and that is the Bahiranga Yoga that we have been talking about. Bahiranga Yoga consists of the 5 limbs: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, and each one of these would independently also can lead to the ultimate reality, that is Swarupa, and that is the state of highest bliss, freedom, knowledge and power. And whether it is Yama or Niyama or Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, independently they can take you to that goal. And we have discussed about the set of don'ts in Yama, Ahimsa, Satya, Steya, Brahmacharya, Parigraha. Then we discussed the 5 set of do's, what we should do to bring the mind slowly under our control: Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhana. And then we started working the asana way. That is the third limb that we started working. Here in yogasanas, the yogic postures, we use the body to gain control over the mind. And the two major schools of pranayam, asanas, the two major schools of asanas, one the dynamic school, probably propagated by Hatha Yoga, which is featured by speed, jerk and repetition. The purpose is to shatter the tamas, to rise to the level of dynamism of rajas. And the second school is relaxing asanas, featured by stretch and relax, slowness and maintenance of the asanas for longer and longer time. And that is the famous Patanjali Yoga. And the purpose of this is to shatter the rajas and take us to the level of sattva. We discussed both these schools. Now, let us try to understand the difference between these dynamic type of asanas and the usual exercises and yogasanas at a glance. How are dynamic asanas different from physical exercise? When we look at exercises, we have normally the physical culture featured by isometric and isotonic practices. In isometric, you fix the length of the muscle and exercise them. There is going to be an increased muscle tone. The muscle length will be fixed, but the muscle tone, which essentially represents the stiffness of the muscle, goes on increasing or decreasing. And normally when you do this isometric practices, the muscles become stiff and tight and the body becomes grim, and thereby you increase the strength and the muscle tone increases. What is muscle tone? Muscle tone, as it is defined, is a state of partial contraction of the muscles. The muscles will be in a state of stretch. That is isometric. What about the isotonic? The practices like weightlifting, the muscle building practices all come under isometric practices, whereas swimming, then the running, the walking all come under isotonic practices. Isotonic would mean that the tone or the stiffness of muscle is maintained same, but then the length of the muscle goes on increasing and decreasing. This is the main difference between the two types of physical practices that we come across. And normally these exercises are featured by jerks. There is often the speed associated with that, and invariably there is lot of energy expenditure in practicing these physical exercises. The amount of energy can be precisely calculated as to how much of energy you are going to spend. Most of these physical exercises are called as workouts. You go and you can precisely calculate how much energy you spend in half an hour of our workouts. There are gymnasiums, health clubs in which various equipment have come up, and you use them to burn up your calories, because obesity has become one of the major problems today and everybody wants to slim down. Slimming has become the order of the day, and therefore workout is the way of that. Therefore most of the physical exercises are taken. People practice physical exercises like walking, brisk running, jogging, all that, including swimming, to reduce the weight, to burn up the calories. Therefore energy expenditure is the key feature of the physical exercises, and when we do the physical practices, physical exercises, we essentially work at the muscular level, the cardiovascular level and the respiratory level. At the muscular level, you exercise the muscles and spend away the energy. In the cardiovascular level, you increase the beating of the heart to keep the heart healthy and spend away the energies, and you work at the respiratory level to increase the breathing rate to increase the metabolic rate and thereby burn the calories. All these happen in physical exercises. Now from there we come to the next called Shithilikarana Vyayama, another name for the dynamic yogasana things. Here also there are repetitions, there are jerks, and there is energy expenditure. Shithilikarana means loosening, and in these loosening practices you bend the body forward and backward, you bend to the right and to the left, and you twist. You do the different asanas several times with repetition and with jerks, and in the encounter you spend a lot of energy. And the practices are very similar to the physical exercise with jerk, speed and repetition. But the key point of difference is that in the loosening practices or in the dynamic system of asanas, we exercise our spine. Spine is the most important thing which is emphasized. In every practice there is either a front bending or a back bending or a side bending or a twist in all the practices. Why do we exercise the spine? The nervous system flows through the spine, and by bending the spine to the front and back and all that, we stimulate the nervous system, and particularly the autonomic nervous system is brought into action, and in that sense we are not only shattering tamas, but we are promoting nerve culture. Therefore, the Shithilikarana Vyayama or the loosening practices or the dynamic school of asanas, they work not only at the muscular, respiratory and cardiovascular systems, but they start working at the gastrointestinal level, endocrine system and the nervous system. Therefore, in a sense, the Shithilikarana Vyayama or the loosening exercises are deeper, subtler. Not only they burn up the calories, but they bring harmony, they bring balance of the nervous system, and is more congenial for stress release, more congenial to handle different ailments, more congenial to deal with things like diabetes and obesity and several gastrointestinal problems and so on. And therefore, dynamic asanas or the Shithilikarana Vyayama or the loosening practice have their own role to play in dealing with the health hazards. From there we now go to regular asanas, yogasanas. In the regular yogasanas, there is slowness, there is maintenance of the asanas for longer and longer duration, and when we do so, there is a reduction in the muscle tone. In exercises, there could be isotonic or increased hypertonic practices, whereas in the Shithilikarana Vyayama, essentially you maintain the tone and you exercise the muscles. But once you come to yogasanas of the Patanjali type, you are going to stretch, maintain slowly, therefore the muscle tone starts reducing. What characterizes this type of practice is very deep relaxation, there is conservation of the energy, and there is a reduction of the rajas, there is a reduction of the excessive speed of the mind, and there is very deep relaxation leading to stress release, and that is the key feature of asanas. Therefore, the yogasanas which are slow, maintained for a long duration, are not workouts. The yogasanas of the Patanjali type are not meant to bring workout effect. If you want to bring out the workout effect, go for the dynamic practices and see that you burn up the calories. But here what are we doing then? Here we are trying to work at the deeper level, not only at the muscular, respiratory and gastrointestinal levels, but also at the endocrine and nervous system level, but we go deeper than that to the brain level and the mind level. And we go to the very root of the problems. Most of the problems hinge around at the mind level, at the Manomaya Kosha level. All the stress ailments have their origin in Adhi, in the Manomaya Kosha. The Adhi percolates down into the physical body, becomes a Vyadhi, and therefore it is the Vyadhi that we try to handle by removing the cause of the disease by eradicating Adhis. How do we do that? Asanas help us to tranquil the mind. The excessive speed of mind is reduced. Manaprashamana takes place, which in turn brings about a harmonization in the brain. All the cells in the brain will start working in cohesion, and there is the alpha rhythm that is induced when you do good asanas. It takes you almost to a meditative state. Then it comes down and brings mastery over the emotions and brings balance of the autonomic nervous system, which is essentially the key feature of asanas, and the balance of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and thereby the balance in the endocrine system is responsible for reduction of stress. Once the stress is reduced, your craving starts reducing. Your craving, which is responsible for your eating too much, which makes you obese, or which makes you diabetic, or brings hypertension or heart problems, can all be remedied once you gain mastery over your desires, mastery over the craving, and you eat as much as needed and not more and not less. And that is how it works at a deeper level, works at a subtle level. Whereas the exercises, the loosening practices all work essentially to spend away the calories, but it doesn't tackle the craving, it doesn't tackle the mental problems, it doesn't tackle the worries and anxieties and tensions and stresses at the mind level, and thereby the remedy is essentially physical. Therefore, you go for the workout, you go for the gym, you go for the isometric and the isotonic exercises and spend away a lot of energy, and you come back and then you start eating more and you pick up the weight. I remember one of my friend who used to go and work out through the steam bag, through the workouts and several things the whole of Sunday, and he will reduce almost 3 to 4 kgs of weight every Sunday, but his craving would have increased, his thirst has increased, and he starts drinking. Since water is not a common thing, they start drinking Coke, and the diet Coke, even that has the component, and I used to see him pick up the weight in 3 to 4 days of 4 to 5 kgs. I used to tell him, my dear, what is the use of going there, doing the steam bath and doing all the workouts and reducing the weight by 4 kgs or 10 pounds, and within 5 days you pick up 12 pounds and you are becoming more and more obese. He says, I have no way out, I do not know what to do. It's here, the asanas of the right type, relaxing type, is going to work wonders. It not only normalizes the functioning, it reduces the craving at the mind level, it brings mastery over the mind, and therefore asanas work at the deepest level of the brain and the mind and the emotions. That is the main difference between asanas. But then, is there a similarity between yogasanas of the Patanjali type and asanas of the Shithilikarana, the dynamic school? What is the objective? How do the loosening practices differ from the physical exercise, apart from working at a deeper level? They also give workout effect, they also give the workout effect. In what way are they different? Let us look at the objectives of yogasanas. What is the real goal of performing the yoga postures? The goal is to see that we gain control over the mind. Both the schools have the same objective. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is to gain mastery over the mind, gain complete control. Chitta vritti nirodha, mastery over the mind, that goal is same. And gaining mastery over the mind would mean reduction of the ego, development of the positive qualities, development of the good qualities, reduction of the negative qualities, reduction of the violent emotions, all that are implicated in the goal of yoga. There is a development of the personality at the physical level, mental level, emotional and intellectual level, and therefore asanas have the same objectives, and all the organs and systems in the body work in harmony when we do the practices, whether it is the dynamic asana type or the slow maintenance type of asanas. and therefore they differ immensely from the physical exercise. There is physical personality development, mastery over the mind, move towards selflessness, and promotion of positive health and bliss. Whereas in the physical exercises, when you have workouts, you don't have these are the objectives. It's only to burn up your calories, probably with an effectiveness to maintain the health and not get stuck with the modern ailments. But there is no mastery over the mind, there is no move towards selflessness, and the promotion of positive health and bliss are not implicated in the practice. Now, having understood the differences, having understood as to how the yogasana, shitilikarana vyayam and physical exercise work, now we go one step further in yogasanas. The stages in yogasanas: sthira, chira, sukha. Sthira is the first step to make the asanas stable, and there is a lot of effort involved in bringing the body to this position, and that is the first step. When you are trying to raise your legs to the Sarvangasana position, you lift the whole body. There is a lot of effort involved in that. The mind is totally in that. There is full concentration, and having taken the leg up, always there is a rush to bring the legs. But with your willpower, you maintain that and come to the second step, chira. It is prescribed that you have to maintain the posture without movement, without bending, in the right position for longer and longer duration. Sarvangasana, slowly increase the duration from 30 seconds to 1 minute to 2 minutes to 4 minutes to 5 minutes, and you should be able to maintain that. That becomes chira. So chira is the second step. The second stage of asanas is steadiness, and that is featured by relaxation. To maintain steadily in that position, you need relaxation. Therefore, Patanjali gives the trick how to move from sthira to chira. Prayatna shaithilya. Having taken your legs there, you have to withdraw the effort from those areas. The muscles which have become tight, now you have to relax. Therefore, you hear from our instructors again and again, relax, relax your face, smile on the face, relax the whole body, relax, relax, has been the watchword. We should go deep into your psyche, and it should become a deep imprint, and you should go on telling to yourself, let me relax, let me relax, let me not get tensed up, let me not get anxious. And this is the trick. Relaxation of the effort is what Patanjali says. When you do that, what happens? You go to the next step, and that is called sukha. It is a stage of bliss. Normally, when you have the relaxation in the second stage, you are able to keep the position effortlessly for longer duration. And once you start maintaining the longer duration of maintenance for 1 minute, 2 minutes, the general tendency is that the mind starts wandering around, and the mind wandering around is no solution. The whole objective of asanas is to gain mastery over the mind and not allow the mind just to go haywire, not allow the mind to get into only the phase of concentration, but you have to raise above to gain mastery. How do we do that? Patanjali gives in the second sutra yet another trick. Prayatna shaithilya ananta samapatti-bhyam. Ananta samapatti is the trick he gives. He says, having reached that position, having started maintaining that without shaking, without imbalance, now you imagine the vast, beautiful blue sky or infinite ocean, and allow your mind to stay put, let it resonate, let it tune itself to that infinite object. And that keeps the mind above dualities, tato dvandva anabhigataha. This brings the stability, this brings the samatva, this brings the balance, and that tuning to infinity is the trick that Patanjali gives, and to make the asanas very blissful. Therefore, the sutra is Prayatna shaithilya and Ananta samapatti-bhyam. Ananta samapatti is tuned to infinity, Prayatna shaithilya is relaxation of the effort. Therefore, in the first stage, to make the position stable, there is lot of effort involved, but gradually you release the effort by deep relaxation and go to the level of the mind to tune to infinity. So you start working from the body level, then at the muscular level and the breathing level, then go to the mind level to tune up. Therefore, asanas is not merely a physical exercise, it is not mechanical action of putting the body into that particular position, but more than that, you start working at deeper and deeper levels. You move from the body level to the breathing level to the mind level to the emotional level and maintain that balance and bring the mind to calmness. When you go on doing it, your body will become strong, the body is going to get harmonized, there is going to be a wonderful balance and health starts coming up in the whole encounter. And by so doing, we get into the state of an ideal body. What is the concept of an ideal body? Beautifully described in the Bhagavata. The Krishna's body is considered to be the best among the bodies. He was the master of yoga, and even his body exhibited this masterly growth, an ideal body. What is its state? There should be tranquility of mind and clarity of thought. The whole system is very well balanced, and there is a harmonious growth, and all the musculature, the bodily muscles are highly flexible, low muscle tone and elastic musculature, but at the same time they have tremendous strength and agility and fastness that is needed, and all these things are implicated in an ideal healthy body, and that is the type of body that is exhibited by Krishna. And in a beautiful encounter, Krishna has to face the mountain of a wrestler Chanura, an experienced wrestler almost around the age of 40 with a huge body, probably a 7-footer or 8-footer, and here is a tiny young lad Krishna with a smiling face. He is hardly 15 or 16 years, and everybody who watched this terrible scenario felt that it is a very, very unjust fight. How can this young lad face that mountain of a Chanura? But Kamsa had his own plot to finish these two young lads, and on the other side Krishna was confident, incarnate. He had no fears whatsoever. He knew that he is going to win, and he started, and when the result started, the Chanura was so confident, he started going and he is about to catch Krishna. He says, in a moment I am going to crush him to pieces. Such was the mountain of the strength of Chanura. But then Krishna would slip away with such effortless ease, with such swiftness, that Chanura has to chase him round, and he started running round to catch Krishna by all ways from this side and that side and running behind him. But Krishna was too fast, smiling, joking at him and exasperating him, and Chanura started becoming angry, started to become anxious, and 15 minutes over, 20 minutes over, half an hour over, and still had not been able to even touch Krishna. And Krishna was so fast and swift, at the same time so agile, smiling and wonderful. And the Chanura started gasping for breath. His very weight, the mountain of his body itself started becoming a burden, and his weak leg, the left one, started dragging behind. Krishna noticed it subtly, and at an opportune moment he goes and gives a hit to his left leg, and the mountain of a Chanura just falls down to the ground. And then you must see the strength of Krishna. He jumps over our chest and smashes him with his fist with such power immaculate, and touches that Marmasthana. The mountain of a Chanura is crushed to death. That is the power of Krishna. It was soft and gentle like a flower when in rest. His body was all the time relaxed, face was wonderfully smiling, full of joy and pleasure and bliss on one front. On the other front, when it is needed, it will have the highest swiftness and speed. He could run to no effort at all. He was running and running for half an hour, never getting exhausted. He has such wonderful energy, and his body just was able to harness that energy. And when the need came, his body got the strength of a diamond, and it was so polarized that all the energy he was able to pack into that and hit such a piercing blow into the right spot of the Chanura, and the rest that dies. This is an ideal healthy body. So by the practice of asanas, you acquire this tremendous strength, this great tolerance, this energy conserved, and you don't waste energies. When we are resting, there is no need for us to waste our energies, but when there is a need either to run or to wrestle or to fight or needing a quick move, then you have all the energy available to you. The muscles are normally very, very soft and gentle like a flower. When there is a need, they become tremendously hard and stiff with a high muscle tone, strong like a diamond. That is the concept of an ideal body. And what happens to the mind? Mind is in clear composure. Mind is that wonderful clarity, the tranquility of the mind, and the clarity of thought is immaculate, and the growth is very well balanced and harmonious, and the musculature is very, very effective. And that is an ideal healthy body that a yogasana, that set of yogasanas can produce. Now, let us try to understand how such a thing is possible. What is the mechanism by which asanas build such an ideal body? There is a lot of research that has gone round, and people have measured various dimensions of asanas. What happens is that all organs and systems in the body will work in harmony to provide very deep rest to the whole body-mind complex. Each and every organ gets the desired rest. Each and every system undergoes very deep rest, and this deep rest, the deep relaxation, the nervous system and the body starts getting normalized. All the imbalances in the nervous system, the autonomic imbalance is all corrected in the whole encounter. There is a balance of the endocrine system that comes up, and slowly the muscles start becoming more and more elastic. The elasticity of the muscles will make it so flexible that while resting, the body is soft like a flower, and when there is a need, then it acquires the strength of a diamond, and that is the ideal body that we acquire through yogasanas. And from that third limb, Patanjali says you have to go to the next. The fourth limb of Bahiranga Yoga is pranayama. The fourth limb of Ashtanga Yoga, the eight-limbed yoga, is pranayama. From the body level, now you go to the next, the breathing. And how does the term pranayama come into picture? Pranayama, when you look at pranasya ayamaha, pranayamaha, ayama is to gain mastery, therefore gaining mastery over prana is pranayama. And why do we gain control and mastery over prana? So that we gain control over the breathing, control over the prana, and thereby control over the mind. That is the purpose of pranayama. Through asanas, we gain control over the body and thereby control over the mind. That is the purpose. In pranayama, you start taking the breathing and start harnessing the breathing, and thereby bring control and mastery over the mind. And that is the pranayama that is talked about. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita talks about this pranayama in his own specialized way. He says, apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapanagati ruddhva pranayama parayanah. Said. Others, some people offer a sacrifice, the outgoing breath, that is the exhalation, in the incoming breath, that is the inhalation, and some others do the reverse. They sacrifice the incoming inhalation with the outgoing, that is the exhalation. By so doing, they restrain the flow of the outgoing and the incoming breaths, solely absorbed in the regulation of the life energy. And that is the pranayama that he is talking about. And again, in this pranayama, there are two distinct schools. When you look at various practices of pranayama going on around the country, the different masters teaching pranayama, essentially we find that there are two main schools. Just like we had two main schools of asanas, the two main schools or methods which are prescribed in Gita, one is the emphasis on inhalation, another is the elongation of the inhalation. And here he says the incoming breath, that the inhalation has to be elongated, the inhalation is slowed down and the exhalation is kept as it is. Some other school emphasize on the exhalation, in which you go on exhaling very slowly. There is an emphasis on elongation of the exhalation in the second, and there is no emphasis on the inhalation, and this is the way that has been talked about in Gita. Some people find it very easy to control the inhalation. They can decrease the breathing rate very effectively while inhaling. They can hold the breath, but there are people who find it very easy to exhale, hold the breath after exhalation, and therefore depending on your preference you can choose either of them and start working. But what is the pranayama, the fourth limb? It is to gain control over the prana. We know that prana and mind are like two wings or two faces of the same coin. When we control prana, we gain mastery over the mind. When we control the prana, we control and gain mastery over the mind, and this is the way that we operate in pranayama. Control the prana, we get the control over the mind. Control the mind, we gain control over the prana. And that is the key feature of pranayama. According to Patanjali, he says, Shvasa prachvasayoho gati vichhedaha pranayamaha. What does that mean? Shvasa and prachvasa, that is outgoing and incoming breath, that is inhalation and exhalation. To cut the speed of inhalation and exhalation is pranayama. So prana is related to the breathing, and when you start controlling the breathing rate, you start operating at the pranayama. Normally the respiratory system has got a dual role. It is both voluntary as well as involuntary. When it is voluntary, we can breathe in and breathe out according to our wish. You can reduce your breathing rate or you can increase your breathing rate. It is under our voluntary control. But when you do not look at it, the breathing goes on automatically. Inhalation and exhalation is going on with a particular speed. The normal speed is 15 to 18 breaths per minute. That is the normal breathing. Therefore, the respiratory system is both voluntary as well as involuntary. And what we do in pranayama is to use the voluntary dimension to reduce the breathing rate, to reduce the speed of breathing, and that is the dimension. How do we do that? The pranayama needs certain preparation, and the preparation for pranayama starts off with cleansing, or what we call kriyas. And through kriyas we have the cleansing process taking place, and then we normalize the breath by what we call sectional breathing, that is breathing through the sections. And with these preparations of cleansing and normalizing, we are ready to go into the pranayama, which is featured by slowing and balancing of breath between the two nostrils. Therefore, we will now start studying the first thing called cleansing. Cleansing is the first step. Cleansing is very necessary to see that our respiratory system comes under our control. And how do we cleanse? The first step involves the fast breathing techniques. The fast breathing cleanses the respiratory tracts. And what are these fast breathing practices? They are called Kapalabhati. Kapalam bhati iti Kapalabhati. Kapala is the skull, and when you do this fast breathing, it will stimulate the brain cells and thereby it makes the skull shine. That's called Kapala Bhati. Bhati is to shine. What does that mean? The brain cells, they get stimulated when you do this practice. How do we do that? It is active exhalation followed by automatic inhalation. You inhale automatically and burst out with both the nostrils. The whole activation takes place from the abdomen. After the inhalation, pull the stomach inwards and allow the breathing to exhale as a burst. And there should be complete exhalation. The whole breath should come out as a burst. When you do with both the nostrils, it is called both nostrils Kapalabhati or simply Kapalabhati. But you can start doing with alternate nostrils. Once you blast through the left and then through the right. This is called alternate nostril Kapalabhati. The whole purpose is to cleanse. Normally the speed is 120 strokes per minute, 120 inhalations, 120 exhalations in 1 minute. Our normal breathing rate is 15 to 18 per minute. So when you increase the breathing rate, what is going to happen? There is increased oxygen supply to the respiratory system, and that will cleanse the system in the sense that all the carbon dioxide from the system will get washed away. There is a decreased carbon dioxide concentration in the blood, and there is an increased concentration in oxygen in the blood, and that is the dimension of cleansing. And either you do Kapalabhati or alternate nostril Kapalabhati, you have the same effect. There is oxygenation of the system, and there is also the stimulation of the brain cells. The brain gets greater blood supply, purer blood supply, oxygenated blood supply, and therefore there is the stimulation, there is an increased memory, there is an increased concentration, and there is greater clarity of mind that emerges by this cleansing process called Kapalabhati Kriya. It is called a Kriya. Kriya is the technical word used for cleansing, and that is the first step. By so doing, our respiratory system gets cleansed, removes all the impurities, and the body is getting prepared to do the next practice, that is the sectional breathing. That is to normalize the breath. Normalizing the breath is the second step. What is our normal speed? It is 15 to 18 breaths per minute. One inhalation, one exhalation is called as one breath. 15 to 18 times we breathe in a minute. But due to the wrong habits, we have developed the wrong breathing, and as a result of that, there is a high speed motion. The breath has become haphazard, the breath has become jerky, the breath has become shallow. This is the defective breathing. When you look at people suffering from respiratory problems, invariably we have found that the breathing rate is fast, and the speed of breathing is directly related to the stress and the speed of the mind. When the mind is extremely fast, it is running riot, as our friend said, running riot, supersonic jet fighter, then the breathing rate also will increase. So we had an interesting research pilot study in which we took 1000 cases of normal people and measured the breathing rate was around 16. We took a group of asthmatics, 1000 asthmatics, the breathing rate was 23.4 breaths per minute. 1000 hypertensives, the breathing rate was 25.6. 1000 patients suffering from anxiety neurosis, the breathing rate was 29.8. Greater the anxiety, greater the speed of the mind, faster the breathing rate. Therefore, if you want to reduce the stress, if you want to reduce the speed of the mind, then what is to be done is to slow down the breathing, and that is what we do here. We have to see that the breathing rate is brought to normalcy. The wrong breathing has to be brought to normalcy. by reducing the high speed breathing to normal rate of 15 to 18 per breath. The haphazard breathing has to be brought and made rhythmic. The rhythmic means the inhalation exhalation cycle will be equal each time. In an unrhythmic breathing, the inhalation and exhalation of the first cycle will be different from the second, will be different from the third cycle, which has to be made rhythmic, equal. Then normally the breath is very jerky in the wrong breathing, which has to be made continuous. The breathing becomes very shallow, only the upper lobe comes into operation, but the complete utilization of the lungs has to be made, and this is the process of normalizing the breath. And how do we do that? By what we call sectional breathing. The breathing in sections. That needs a little understanding of our respiratory system. Normally, the respiration takes place by expansion of the thoracic muscles. Whenever there is a inner signal that is sent from the brain respiratory center to the thoracic muscles will expand, and that will create a vacuum, and that will suck the air through the nostrils. This is inhalation. The air starts moving up through the nostrils, goes all the way up and turns around, comes down through the nasal tract, down to the throat, and comes down to the trachea and goes to the bronchi and enters into the lungs. And this is the part of the lungs that we have shown. We have two lungs, the left one and the right one, and the left one has got two lobes in its structure to accommodate the heart here, and the right one has three lobes, the lower lobe, the middle lobe and the upper lobe. And the breath comes through trachea, or the windpipe comes down and it bifurcates into two. They are called the bronchi, the left bronchus and the right bronchus, and the bronchi now enter into the lungs and develop themselves as branches like a tree, the branches and the sub branches and the sub branches, and they end up with very, very small capillaries and end up in a small sac, and that sac is called alveole. And the in breath goes and comes all the way finally to the alveole, and it is in the alveole, a sac, that the exchange takes place. The dirty air full of carbon dioxide is brought here, and the fresh air exchanges oxygen with that, and the blood carries the oxygen and gives away the carbon dioxide. This wonderful mechanism of cleansing that is going on regularly in our body. And when we breathe, normally we should breathe through all the three lobes on the right side, or at least on both the sides on the left side. But because of the wrong breathing habits, because we breathe very shallow, we start breathing very fast, we do not use the other two lobes at all. The upper lobe and the bottom lobe is all cut off. Only middle portion of the lobe is used, and that is the middle lobe in the lungs on the right side. The upper lobe and the lower lobe is not used. As a result, the breathing becomes shallow, our capacity of breathing reduces, therefore the breathing rate increases. And how do we correct this? How to make the breath enter into all the three lobes? We have the practice called sectional breathing. In the sectional breathing, you have to start working with the abdominal breathing. Invariably, you start sitting in Vajrasana, and this is the position for Vajrasana, and you use first the Chin Mudra, keep it on the thighs and start working with the abdomen. As we inhale, the breath goes in, slowly pull the abdomen forward, and as you bring the abdomen forward, then the air enters into the lower lobe also. Then as you breathe out, suck the abdomen inwards, all the air will escape through the nostrils. This inhalation and exhalation is featured by movement of the abdomen to the front and movement to the back, and this goes on, and this abdominal breathing is very vital for the correction. Most of the people who suffer from asthma, people who suffer from respiratory problems, they have a reversed breathing. What do I mean by reverse and wrong breathing? Normally, when we breathe in, abdomen should come forward, and when we breathe out, abdomen should go inwards. This is the natural, rhythmic and correct breathing. You observe any animal or observe yourself when you are lying down in Shavasana position, lying down on the back. When you are breathing in, abdomen is coming up. When you are breathing out, abdomen is going down. This is the natural and correct breathing. But because of our wrong habit, we reverse the breathing. When you breathe in, abdomen goes in. Breathe out, abdomen comes out. Take the abdomen inwards as you breathe in, and breathe out, it comes out. Wrong breathing. What is the result of this wrong breathing? When you are trying to inhale, when you take the abdomen inwards, the diaphragm will pull up, make it convex, and try to throw away the air. So there is a paradox. One side you are trying to breathe in, and another side you are trying to breathe out, and as a result, the lower lobe of the lungs do not come into operation, and it gets cut off. And therefore, only the middle lobe operates in the lungs. The upper lobe and the lower lobe becomes effectively ineffective, and that is the reason why we have problems. An increased breathing rate, the shallow breathing, the jerky breathing, fast breathing all starts coming up. Therefore, the abdominal breathing corrects these mistakes, the wrong breathing habits that people have, and brings the lower lobe into operation, and that is called the abdominal breathing. The first operation that we have to learn to bring the lower lobe also into operation effectively, making the air come and fill into the lower lobe effectively here. Then the middle lobe also has to be expanded, and for that we have the thoracic breathing. The mudra that we use is called Chinmaya mudra. Keep the Chinmaya mudra here. As we inhale, there is expansion of the thorax. The thoracic muscles should be expanded to the front, to the side, and as much to the back as possible. And when you do that, more and more air will enter into the middle lobe, and the middle lobe will start expanding, increasing the capacity of the lungs, increasing what we call the vital capacity of the lungs. Then we have the third breathing called clavicular breathing. The clavicular breathing, also called as upper lobar breathing, and this is to bring the air into the upper lobes very effectively. What we do here is sit here, and the mudra that we use is called Adi mudra. Keep the Adi mudra. As we inhale, the breath enters into the chest, expand the chest, then take the shoulders a little up and take it to the back, and when we do that, there is a push of the breath into the upper lobes. These muscular movements of the shoulders going back and lifting up will make the breath enter into the upper lobe, and this upper lobar breathing also is called clavicular breathing, and that's how more air enters into the upper clavicles. And then as you breathe out, bring the shoulders down and front, and this is called the upper lobar breathing or clavicular breathing. Therefore, we have abdominal breathing to bring air into the lower lungs, thoracic breathing to increase the middle lobe capacity, clavicular breathing to make the upper lobe effective, air to enter into the upper lobe, and thereby all the three lobes come into operation, and this process is called sectional breathing, breathing in sections, the lower lobe, the middle lobe and the upper lobe. And once we learn that, you have the full yogic breathing, which should become our normalcy. And as we start breathing in, the lower lobe gets the air, then the middle lobe and the upper lobe. How do we do that? Observe, the mudra is called the Brahma mudra. Have this and put it on the abdomen, and as we inhale, abdomen comes forward, then expand the chest and the thorax, then inhale, take the shoulders up and back, and inhale more air. It will go into the upper lobe, relaxed, effortless, smiling face, and as you breathe out, take the abdomen inwards, thorax relaxed, shoulders down and front. This is one cycle. Normally, we perform abdominal breathing 9 rounds, thoracic breathing 9 rounds, clavicular breathing 9 rounds, and combining all the three is the full yogic breathing, which brings all the lobes into operation, and we do that 9 rounds. By so doing, every day we find that your breathing is corrected, and continuously there is going to be a improvement in your breathing, vital capacity, and all the wrong breathing habits will all vanish. This is the dimension of what we call correction of the breathing, called sectional breathing. So we have prepared ourselves after the cleansing through the Kapalabhati, after the sectional breathing working through 3 sections. We have prepared the lungs, brought it to normal operation. Now we are all set to go into the pranayama. The pranayama is to slow down the breath. And when we look at the various schools of pranayama, we again find that there are 2 distinct schools of pranayama, as we had 2 distinct schools of yogasanas. And what are these 2 schools? The first school is called the Hatha Yoga school, and the second is called the Vasishtha school or the Patanjali school. In the Hatha Yoga school, the Kumbhaka or holding of the breath is compulsory, whereas in the Vasishtha school, slow inhalation and slow exhalation is recommended. In both the ways, there is going to be a reduction in the breathing. The definition of pranayama says, Shwasa prachwasayoho gati vichchedaha pranayamaha. When we breathe in and when we breathe out, there should be a cutting of the speed of breathing. That's what is said. What does that mean? If you are breathing 25 times a minute, you should reduce it to 20 times, maybe 15 times, and maybe bring it down to 10 times. That is the pranayama, slowing down of breathing. How do we do that? By 2 distinct ways. One is breathe in with a normal speed, then hold the breath for a while. Breathe out, then hold the breath again. This holding of breath after the inhalation, holding of breath after the exhalation is called Kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is to hold the breath. When you inhale and hold the breath, it's called Antarya Kumbhaka. Antarya means inhalation Kumbhaka. Also it's called Puraka Kumbhaka. And when you exhale and hold the breath, it's called the Rechaka Kumbhaka, or it's called Shunyaka, or it's also called Bahir Kumbhaka. Inhalation is called Puraka, exhalation is called Rechaka. Inhalation and exhalation go on, and the Rechaka and Puraka are continuously going on. And in the Hatha Yoga school, therefore, we see that the Kumbhaka is a mandatory part. The holding of breath is very, very important and is part and parcel of the entire system, and is a compulsory and mandatory part in the Hatha Yoga school. Thereby, we reduce the breathing rate. Whereas in the second school, Vasishtha school, there is no compulsory holding of breath. There is no mandatory part of Kumbhaka. Here you inhale slowly and you exhale slowly. You slow down the inhalation and exhalation, and there is no forceful holding of breath. That is the key difference between the Hatha school and the Vasishtha school. Now, Hatha school prescribes that when you hold the breath, you must do what is called bandhas. The holding of the breath should be at the throat level.